Excuse me. Okay. So the next item on here, and then we'll get to the obstetrics and animal chiropractic, is to decide if we want to go into rulemaking for OAR 811-010-0020 for filing name change.
My one question about this is if we need it separated into 1 and 2s or not, rather than just having a blanket paragraph.
Like adding specific documentation.
Say what, Micah? We can't hear you.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? Oops. Can you hear me?
That's better, yeah.
Like adding specific documentation to this, or just leaving as is? Like a list of documents that they need to bring, or at least send to the OBCE about the name change.
Can you guys hear me at all? I can't hear them.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Someone was just asking if we needed a list of the necessary documentation rather than just a statement.
There's a list of the documentation that we accept that's on the name change affidavit.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Cass, what would be the reason to dividing it up into like a 1 and a 2?
Just standard format. We don't generally have rules that are just paragraphs.
Is it an OBCE name change affidavit? Is that a form or?
Yes, right, Heather? That's a form?
Yes, yes. The name change affidavit is the form that we have. And then there's the list of documentation that we'll accept.
So I think what will help us with the audio is if you're not speaking, just go mute.
This is Lori again. Do we want to call it a filing name change or name change notification? The word filing just kind of always reminds me of a court filing.
Like a pleading, yeah.
Yeah. And
I
so
think probably just name change or name changes would be fine. And Krista, to your question, generally a lot of times folks will read smaller sentences, often don't read full paragraphs very well. And so if we want this to be a requirement, then I would say separate out the first sentence into 1, second sentence into 2.
Yeah. All right, well, I will make a motion to go into rulemaking for OAR 811-010-0020 at the meeting in January.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, Karen?
Aye.
Scott?
Aye.
Corey?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Lori?
I
Micah?
Aye.
I for myself, motion carries. I can't look at people's faces when I call the roll. It messes me up. Okay. All right, so 811-015-0035.
Actually it's 0150030.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's good. And this actually starts off our general review of Division 15. So we're not bringing this forward for any particular reason other than general review and updating. So give it a look over. If y'all think we need to update any language, then we can do that. If not, we don't need to take action on it.
There's a space after the slash in 1.
If there are other changes to it, we can put that in, but if that's the only changes and I try to submit that, it's gonna get kicked back. I will put that there, but yeah. I kind of got a talking to about minor changes.
Oh.
A lot can be said in that space. Thank you, Krista.
Mm-hmm.
I think we reviewed this not long ago.
Would Doctor of Naturopathy be capitalized in number 3, section 3?
No,
I don't
I
know.
don't think so.
Okay. Any other changes? I don't see anything that jumps to mind as far as we've had issues with.
I don't think so. Anybody?
Okay.
All right.
So no action. All right.
All right. 811-015-0031.
Do we have the other person that wanted to be here?
Yeah, Dr. Bodenbender Cade is here.
Yes, thank you. Did you guys want to discuss the orders or did you want me to, may I chime in?
Yeah.
I may chime in?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, thank you. So I wanted to discuss what you just previously talked about and also the animal chiropractic thing because I am new here to the state of Oregon and I graduated in 1996 from Los Angeles College of Chiropractic and had 2 thriving practices there for 30 years. So I had a human practice that I've had for 30 years and I've had a veterinary practice 2 separate practices combined as one for 25 years. I'm certified in that and licensed as a DC. So upon moving to Oregon in partial retirement, my spouse grew up here. So she wanted to come back and live in Oregon. And I welcomed that because it is stunningly beautiful and I love hiking and being outside. So who'd say no to that? But upon looking at how to become licensed here so I could work part-time, I found that there are some loopholes, which you guys are well aware of, that are very different from other states. So I've been working with Heather and she's fantastic. So in trying to get everything in order. But I think what my concern is being a 30-year practitioner, there is a part of me that sees a huge opportunity for the state of Oregon and the board itself for being able to create a a business opportunity of a grandfathering in clause of physicians. I think I'm a great example of this. Somebody who's been in practice for 30 years. I have been active and licensed in the state of California the entire time. I have no blemishes on my record. I hold my malpractice insurance. Everything is above board. And I do the same thing when I work in the veterinary world. I only work in veterinary clinics under supervision of other veterinarians because I know I'm stepping into their world. So I see a business opportunity for the board because I do realize, being somewhere where there's 15,000 chiropractors that are active, it's a money game. And you have to rely on licenses and licensed active doctors to provide monies to OBCE. So I feel like there could be a grandfathering in clause for someone like myself, where, for example, you say you've been practicing in good standing for 20 years, you have all your CEUs in order, you have no blemishes on your record, you're insured, and you meet these criteria to be able to just do the specialty that I was taught, which is obviously neuromusculoskeletal disorders. I have no interest in becoming a minor surgeon or do anything with obstetrics, gynecology, or proctology. I do not want to be that intimate with any of my patients. And I live in Salem and in South Salem. There are 200,000 people in South Salem. There is no need for me to be able to do that. Now, my wife said, upon me learning these things and her being from Jefferson, where her entire high school had 200 people, my high school had 4,000 people in Southern California. She said, well, honey, it's probably because it's so rural and there are so many farms that there could be a need for, like, if a veterinarian happened to be there and you happen to be there and Farmer Joe got kicked by a horse and he was lacerated, one of you guys could figure out how to suture him up, because it would be a helivac flight for 2 hours to go to have him go to a proper doctor, which I understood that. That makes sense to me. I am in a rural community, which is foreign to me. I grew up in a city. So I get that. And I had the privilege of speaking to a very newly former, I should say, board member who was kind and spoke to me on the phone and said, ask me anything. And I said, where did this come from? And he said, well, it was inducted in around the 40s, and we don't want to lose it, because once you gain something, which I totally get this, because of some of the stuff, the kooky stuff we've done in California. Like, for example, we opted out of Medicaid. Why would you opt out of monies at all? I feel that's silly. But anyway, he said, we don't want to lose it. And I said, okay. So I let him share that with me. And he said, my question was, okay, doc, I think there are about 600 active licensed DCs practicing in Oregon. How many do those other specialties? And there was a really long pause. And he said, maybe a handful. And I said, okay. And I said, so I see an opportunity here where we could open a door. And he said, well, hang on a second. He said, it also has something to do with our ability to become PCPs. It helps us become better referral doctors and manage patients' care that way. And I said, well, but when I went to DC school, I learned the entire human body. I said, I am extremely comfortable co-managing and referring to other specialties. No problem with that. I said, I've done it several times. I said, I recently had to do it because I had a patient that came in and was discussing their week. And they said, gosh, it was so wild. When I was walking with my husband, I was really having a hard time kind of breathing. And I said, how long has that been going on? And she said, 2 weeks. And I said, do you have a cardiologist? And she said, I don't, but my brother-in-law has a great cardiologist. And I said, you're going to call that doctor and make an appointment. That patient needed a quadruple bypass. I didn't need to go learn cardiac surgery to understand a red flag with my experience. I don't need to be an endocrinologist, a proctologist, OBGYN, minor surgery. to be a really good DC and stay in my lane. So my thought was, what if a short list comes up of a grandfathering in clause for senior practitioners that would love to be in the state because it's gorgeous and love to be in the Pacific Northwest, that want to give back to the community. The community I moved into are all brand new homes. On my street alone, there are 4 states that are represented just on my street: Texas, Arizona, California, Oregon, Washington. Just on my street. All of them have asked me if I could help them. And I said, no, I can't. What I currently do is I fly back to California every month and I work one long weekend and I treat all of my base back in California, but I'm not allowed to come back here and work. And I would love to. I would love to help the community, the public in Oregon. And I think there is a fit for it. And I think a legal document could be brought up that says, I promise I fill the role for all of these requirements. I promise I will stay in my neuromusculoskeletal lane. And if I don't, I will go to chiropractic jail in Oregon and be fined and lose my license. But now I would be regulated by you guys and I would give you money to be able to practice. And there would be a need for that because there's where I live. I could say, you know what? I'm sorry, Cindy, but Joe, the dermatologist next door, would probably do a much finer job than I ever could, even though I am minor surgery qualified. Through reading literature, by the way, because that's what I had to do on DC Online. Read literature. I don't have a teacher. I don't have a lab to go to. It's essentially nonsensical for me to have to learn these things that I would never, ever do because I wouldn't feel confident. And anybody that would choose me to do that, it would only have to be an emergency basis in Salem. So I feel that there's a huge business opportunity to welcome other doctors that would love to be up here that just get sort of roadblocked because I didn't go to Western states. You know, it creates diversity. It creates other doctors from other schools. Where I practiced down in Southern California, I had people from Life West and Life and Palmer and Cleveland and LACC and a school in Texas, all in my neighborhood. We all brought a different philosophy and a different way of chiropractic. It's the art of chiropractic. And everybody has like their own special thing. And it sort of feels like it's pigeonholed because we didn't go to Western states. You kind of can't be a DC in Oregon. And I feel like that's a bit of a shame. It'd be like saying every MD in Oregon went to USC. It's kind of weird. So I would love the board to potentially consider a legal document that grandfathers in very good doctors that really would love to practice up here that get roadblocked by some of these other things that are used by a small majority of the 1,600 docs in our state.
So doctor, I just have a question for you. So really what you're saying is that you want to just come in, but not be required to take the organ specific exams, the minor surgery, proctology, OB-GYN. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to get clarification because
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, I just feel like at this point in my life, at 58 and 30 years in practice, I would have no need to do it, and my brain is older. I could have done it when I was in my 20s. If I went to Western, I would have done it, and I probably would have thought it was great, but I wouldn't have used it. But being from where I came from and I'm really good at my job, guys. I'm really good at my job. I think I could be of value if I just stayed in my lane. If you just allowed someone like myself to just do neuromusculoskeletal evaluations. And I have no problem being able to look at, because I examine skin and I say, I'm not comfortable with what that mole looks like. It's not the right shape. It's bicolored. It's blue. It's in a spot over the clavicle, over the acromion. I don't like it. Please go get it checked by your dermatologist. Not a problem. It seems like a great business opportunity for you guys to push more DCs in, welcome other people in that just promise to stay in a neuromusculoskeletal lane, even if this just came to me, even if it has to, if I have to say, okay, fine, guys, then you don't have to consider me a PCP. I'll just do chiropractic. If, because I don't know this rule, if being a PCP in Oregon, because in California, I'm considered a PCP. Here, is there the 4 subjects, those 4 specialties? Do you have to have those to be considered a PCP, or is that not true?
I don't mean to interrupt, and I'm sorry, Dr. Bodenbait. I know I'm going to mispronounce that, Bodenbender, Kate.
okay.
So I'm new as of May. So I just want to make sure, because I do this rules part here, that we're in the middle of the administrative rules. So is what the doctor talking about, would that be needing to be under a different agenda item, or is this under the, does that make sense?
It's the topic that's been brought up, Chris, is actually really with kind of tangentially regarding the OB-GYN minor surgery proctology rule that we just went over.
Okay, that makes sense, because I was like,
Yeah.
wait. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was told that I should come in from the email I received, that I was supposed to speak at 8:30. That's why I jumped in at 8:30, because it said public comment. But then as I read through, I learned that you guys were going to discuss some of these things. And I thought it might be more appropriate to speak as you're speaking about them, because I have a ton of knowledge in not only neuromusculoskeletal conditions, but I also do in the small domestic veterinary world as well, because I ran still do. I run 2 very successful practices down in California doing that. And I would love to be able to bring that to the public here safely.
Lori,
Lori, did you have a comment?
Well, and so I'm a public member, but, and so docs or Cass jump in and correct me, but I like the idea, but also like using your reference of staying in your lane. We would want you, I think, to stay in Oregon, like Oregon's lane of rules, because it's my understanding, and again, I'm a public member, but it's my understanding that every state has different rules, and some things you can do in Oregon, you can't do in different states. And so I think part of like what we do is manage chiropractic in Oregon. So that's why I think there's the reference to the Western, because I know we do take other states schooling, but and Cass, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that why we have them take some of the Oregon stuff? Is you got to know Oregon's lane in order to stay in Oregon?
No, yeah, and I 100% realize that. I just feel like that the number of active DCs in Oregon is low. It's 1,600, and it's a small state, and I totally understand that. Only a handful of people within that 1,600 do utilize those 4 things that were doctrined in and around the 40s. So I see an opportunity, and I mean stay in my lane by saying, I promise I won't do surgery like those 5 people that do of the 1,600, or I don't know, a gynecological exam or a hemorrhoidectomy. And I will just do what I'm really good at, which is chiropractic. And when I read the doctrine of chiropractic written for Oregon, it's beautifully written, because it's exactly what I learned in school, which is not only the spine, but also extremities. So all joints can be addressed. It's beautifully written paragraph. And then it ends, and then it states plus minor surgery, obstetrics, gynecology, and proctology. And I'm like, what? And so I would stay not in that lane, but in the chiropractic realm.
So
As a
essentially-
veteran, as a veteran.
So
That's
essentially
what I'm offering.
Yeah, so what essentially you're proposing is for us to create a limited license for those
Correct.
folks who are going to be, you know, have a certain amount of years, and proof of no disciplinary action, pretty much an extended or expanded reciprocity.
Correct. It would welcome so many other doctors that I know would love to be up here, that are good doctors, that love their craft and still want to practice. Like the other 1,595 that are already here and practicing, but not doing those other things.
What I would propose for the board to do, and Doctor, if you were up for it, drafting up a proposal of what that could look like, and what
I
you're
would
saying,
love to.
different
that.
years in practice criteria, et cetera. And then we can review that in January's meeting, our next meeting. Just so it's not ad hoc conversation.
Absolutely. I would
if you wanna-
absolutely welcome and help with, I don't know anything legal.
Yeah.
It would just be research, but I'm not,
Sure.
I'm a DC,
No.
not a legalese person.
More than welcome to submit something, and it could just, we could look at what rule that would modify and go from there. But thank you for bringing it to our attention. I think it's really worth having the conversation around.
I appreciate that. Thank you for your time. And the only thing I have to add, and I don't know what you guys do chiropractically with animals, because I know you're getting to that. I just don't want to take more of your time, but just briefly, I was told by somebody from Western after Heather was helping me, she asked me to speak to somebody there, and they said that I need a veterinarian's referral to be
Mhm.
able to do that once I was licensed. And so I'm very comfortable with that because I'm used to actually working in veterinary clinics, not just sort of randomly going around and doing it. I do it under the supervision of veterinarians. So, and I know that you guys have the law of it's a referral. Once the referral is given to someone like myself, one of the chiropractors, they say it's okay to do musculoskeletal work, then that would be the only time I would do that. So
Yep.
that's what I was told and what I understand. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah. So we
okay.
have the rule
I
pulled
have-
up if you want to take a look at it.
Perfect.
And this is Lori, the public member. Dumb it up for me and tell me how much extra work it is to actually get the Oregon specific stuff. Because I'm reading the rule for application and stuff, and honestly, I can't tell.
That may be something that staff can answer.
Yeah, all of that seems very normal from what I'm used to. The only addition I would get here would be the referral from the veterinarian, which is what I was working with the veterinary board back in California to give referrals instead of making us have a veterinarian right on site with us, because the referral makes more sense. We are the experts in what we do chiropractically, they're not. And that's what my veterinarians that I worked with always told me. Why would I tell you what to do? You're the expert in chiropractic. I am not. I went to veterinary school. So I would rather refer to you. So we're working on that currently, back on that board. So what you guys do here makes more sense to me. So I very much appreciate your time and listening.
Lori, so your question though was, what is the requirements of the Oregon specific exams? Was that your question?
Yeah, going back to the general topic, I just, because she brought up a really good point and a really good idea. And so, you know me, I pulled up the how to apply to be a DC, and just skimming through it, I'm like, well, gosh, what is the specific? How much actual like work is it? Because to me, I can't quite tell because I'm not a DC. I don't know, is it a year of classes? Is it at 2 hours? Like that's.
I just had to do this. May I tell her?
Sure.
Okay, so Lori, what I was asked to do after talking with Heather and working with Heather was, well, you have to go on a site like DC Online, which offers these courses for the state of Oregon. Oregon has their applications and sites and coursework evaluated through a company usually called DC Online. They even actually work out of Western states, which is the university most of the doctors, I think, in Oregon went to. I believe all the board went to Western. So they're taught that while they're there, but we don't get that. We get a skosh of it. I did back in the 90s. I learned how to suture. I learned about because we learn every system. But here they have these additional requirements that it's a much higher level of hours, like 36 to 40 hours, I believe, for minor surgery, and then obstetrics, gynecology, and proctology. Proctology is probably the least, but you still have to learn it. And what you have to do is I had to take additional coursework. And when you're reading this coursework, it is literally just literature. It's a book of how to become a surgeon, of all dermatological needs. And then at the very end of these bazillion pages, you have very grainy 1990s, maybe 2000 videos of doctors performing surgeries. And then I'm supposed to sit an exam, a proctored exam, and pass this. And it is everything from what filament are you going to use after you use your astringents to clean, which is all chemistry, to biopsying, to how do I make it sterile, to etc. You can get the general idea. And then I have to do that for obstetrics. And then I have to do that for gynecology. And then I have to do that for proctology. Now, my only other question would be, why does it stop at those 4 subjects? If I have to be an expert in chiropractic, an expert in dermatology, an expert in obstetrics, gynecology, etc., why is it not cardiology? Cardiology, the #1 killer in the country of men and women, I just have to know, hey, my patient just showed up 2 weeks ago and said, I have shortness of breath. And I said, you better go to a cardiologist. Because in my head, a red flag went off. And then she needed bypass surgery. So I don't understand why I only need to be an expert in 4 subjects to do what I do.
The reason is because those other ones are tested on the national board, and so at
Which
least
I
I
took.
mean, right? So but-
Which I didn't have to, because I took the last California board and passed, and the last one that was offered in 96, and then in 96 the NBCE came about, and the first exam happened to be at LACC where I went, and I borrowed money to take that test, and only 3 states at the time were involved in the NBCE. And with the hope of me potentially being able to retire in another state other than Southern California, I took it and I passed it. So I have that as well. But it just seems interesting when I went to doctor school to learn neuromusculoskeletal conditions and how to be a really good grade 5 adjuster, that when I get to move after practicing for several decades, there's this sticking point where I think it could be a workaround as a business opportunity for not only myself, but for the board, because you would welcome in and have a lot more numbers and a lot more people you could regulate. We'd be on the radar.
Right. And I'm not saying that I disagree. You asked why an expert in those areas. I'm just answering because the national board tests on those other topics. And because of just the scope of practice in Oregon, we needed that extra bit of testing to cover what the national board didn't. So we had our own tests created, and just that's why we have licensees take those. And so, I mean, like we've said, we are 100% open to the idea of that kind of limited license or that grandfathering in for docs like yourself. So
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I'm
Thank you.
anxious to hear, what you come up with.
Dr. Bodenbender Cade, what I'll do is I'll put my email down in the chat. So go ahead and email me everything. I'll get it over to Cass, and then I will get it. I will get you on the agenda at the next board meeting. Okay.
Fantastic.
Perfect.
Thank you guys. I appreciate you.
Yeah.
Thanks, docs.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
Thank you. You too. Appreciate it.
Okay, does anybody see any changes that might need to go into rulemaking for animal chiropractic? All right, I'm gonna say we're rolling on then. 811-015-0045 for advertising. Did anybody see any changes on here? Going once, going twice. All right. So 811-015-0066 for telehealth. I feel like we've looked at this one a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody see anything? All right, moving on. 811-015-0070. Hang on here. Oh, looking good. Okay. All right, 015-0080. License suspension and probation. Anything on here? No. Okay. All right, that concludes number 8. Let's see, it's 10:38 and we have an 11 o'clock interview, so I think we should probably move. Are we going to exec or to that interview room?
Let's go into the interview room just so that we don't have to jump back and forth,
Okay,
and we can limit access then. So
all right.
that interview
We'll let
room.
Miriam stop the recording.
Do you need to read the blurb?
Oh, do I need to read the thing?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Miriam. Hold, please. All right, the Oregon Board of Chiropractic Examiners will now meet in executive session to consider information or records that are exempt from public inspection, including advice from legal counsel, and to consider information obtained as part of an investigation into licensee or applicant conduct. This executive session is held pursuant to ORS 192.6601, ORS 192.6602F and L, ORS 678.126, ORS 676.165, and ORS 676.1751. Members of the news media may remain during executive session but are directed not to report on, record, or otherwise disclose any of the deliberations or information discussed during the executive session. If you are a member of the public, attendees attending through Microsoft Teams will now be removed from the virtual room, and audience members attending in person are asked to leave the room for the duration of executive session. At the end of executive session, the board will return to public session for the purpose of taking formal action on matters discussed in executive session. While the board is in public session, the public video stream will be available. If there are any questions about whether the board remains in executive session, you may contact info@obce.oregon.gov.
All right. See you in the interview room.